Bearcat Blitz coming at you right now on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Heltman. He's my co-host, Neil Meyer. We are with Cincinnati Bearcats on SI, and Neil also with the frontofficenews.com. Good show to get to you guys today with Cincinnati football adding another wide receiver to the coffers. 3-star commit over the weekend in Giyahni Kontosis. We'll discuss that with Neil. They beat out some middling power conference programs for a 3-star recruit. It happened, people. They did it after losing some battles over the last month and a half. They won one here. We'll dive into that. A good weekend for Cincinnati football as they get ready for fall camp. We'll give our final pre-camp thoughts as well during this show. Also with Scott Satterfield and the coordinators getting ready to talk to the media on Tuesday and then kick off fall camp later on this week. Before we get to all that, though, I want to tell you about Bet Online. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Bet Online has every stat, matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet Online. The game starts here. Take a quick break and get some messages from our great sponsors. And then we will dive into the Giyahni Kontosis commitment and some of our final pre-camp thoughts as Cincinnati football gets ready to basically start off another season at Nippert Stadium and beyond. Stay with us after these messages on Bearcat Blitz presented by Bet Online. Neil, another wide receiver in the fold for Cincinnati football as they get ready to welcome Giyahni Kontosis to the class of 2025. This is their 4th wide receiver commitment in the class and a pretty impressive commitment when you think about him being the 3rd highest rated commit currently on Cincinnati's class of about 15 names that we'll see if they can get it up to about 20 before the end of the cycle concludes. Overall, though, good weekend for Cincinnati football. They beat out the likes of Tennessee, Maryland, some of these other middle-tier power conference schools that you're going to have to win these recruiting battles with if you want to get to the heights that this coaching staff, this fan base, and everybody wants to see this program return to down at Nippert Stadium.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And you hit the nail on the head there in terms of Cincinnati beating out some top schools for high 3-star wide receiver Giyahni Kontosis. You look down at some of the schools that Kontosis was receiving interest from or had an offer from. Big 12 foe West Virginia was in the mix. Tennessee was highly in the mix. South Carolina, Oregon, Minnesota, Michigan State, Maryland. He had a lot of Big 10 offers, Indiana as well, and Pittsburgh. So overall, Cincinnati lands their 4th wide receiver in the class in Giyahni Kontosis. But Russ, the bigger thing was for Kontosis was he was on campus right when official visits opened up this summer on May 31st. Really, the staff did a great job at locking him down. Brad Glenn and the offensive coordinators and Scott Satterfield, they locked down a very talented wide receiver. And you look at it, Russ, finished with over 1,000 yards in his junior season there at Riverdale Baptist. I believe he had 11 touchdowns as well. Possesses great speed, great size, a physical frame, stands 6'1", 195 pounds. He's probably closer to 200 pounds now. Russ, you're looking at, we've talked about it all offseason in terms of where this class was sitting after the last month and a half that they had after you see the 2 guys flip. You miss out on a primetime target in Grant Bierman. Cincinnati's class, Russ, they're now jumping back up from below. They were, last time we recorded this episode, an episode of Bearcat Blitz, they were sitting well below the 60th rank of the 2025 class. Now, according to 247, they're sitting at an overall 55th in the class of 2025 following the addition of Giyahni Kontosis. So overall, he's ranked the 544th player in the class of 2025. So this is a big time addition for Scott Satterfield and the staff. As you mentioned, you locked down your 4th wide receiver. So now it's going to kind of be interesting to see where they turn their focus to next in terms of the 2025 class.
4 wide receivers in this class right now, as Neil just mentioned. 3rd highest rated player in the class. And when you look at the ratings of these players, Neil, they're all either wide receivers, cornerbacks, or running backs right now. So that's going to be kind of when we flip forward and look at what Cincinnati has to continue to do here. It's obviously a program that we know is wide zone based. They're a running team. They're going to win conference championships by running the football and operating off of that from Scott Satterfield's system into some of those bigger plays, those play action looks and stuff like that. So the big fellas up front, when do those start coming in? I think that's when we start looking ahead to the rest of the class now, and the defensive tackle prospects as well. We're waiting on that. We're waiting to see what kind of trench options they can add to this class. But overall, receivers looking very, very strong. And it's looking like they're going to be able to keep those coffers full for the next 3 to 4 years, or as long as Scott Satterfield is keeping this thing cooking here. Overall, 4 receivers total, 4 defensive backs as well. So, Neil, it feels like on the outsides of both sides of the football, they're pretty well stocked right now. When you think about receiver and cornerback, they've done a great job on that front. This recruiting class, got to commend them there. Now, the back half of the summer, the rest of the summer, you can focus on the trenches. Maybe a guy like Jaden Clark on the offensive line, stuff like that. Some of these bigger targets that you want to bring in, both literally and figuratively, when we think about the importance and the size of these players. But looking at Kontosis in general, this is one of the better signings that they've made under Scott Satterfield. This is the 3rd 88 plus ranked player they brought into this class to go along with Mikael Skinner and Jamari DeLoach. Skinner, who notably got an offer this past weekend from his hometown school and his home state school in South Carolina. That name, along with the other kind of official visits he's going on, he's going to be tough to keep in. And so I think getting your entire wide receiver group kind of fleshed out with multiple names and guys that are at multiple levels of quality and high quality at that is solid, and it's going to be key in case one of these guys ends up flipping over the rest of the cycle here. But there's no real indication from Skinner just yet. He's been locked in all the way. He is leading the way as the 2nd 90 plus rated player on the class to go with Jamari DeLoach, who appears to be locked in solid as well. And you follow that with Giyahni Kontosis this past weekend. They beat out, like you mentioned, Neil, some serious programs, and this is clap, clap, clap for the recruiting staff and getting this done and making sure that they are good to go on the wide receiver front for this class especially and moving forward. So it's a big win for Cincinnati football, a positive weekend heading into the first week of practices. That's exactly what you want to see. So it was a good job by the recruiting staff, good job by Scott Satterfield, Brad Glenn, offense coordinator, wide receivers coach, everybody involved with bringing in Giyahni Kontosis. As you mentioned, Neil, averaged basically 100 yards and a touchdown every time he touched the field last year for Riverdale Baptist. Very, very solid player. Mostly saw him operating as a kind of outside guy. Doesn't necessarily mean he can't flash inside and be able to use that kind of hybrid frame that he has that you could see working in the slot or on the outside at 6 foot and 195 pounds. Nice deep ball receiver. He's got a nice 5th gear, can really burn people at the 3rd level of defense, and shows nice over the shoulder, back shoulder catchability, and the ability to pinpoint the ball in the air and get the job done in the red zone and in traffic. So I like this signing for sure. Not signed just yet, but commitment for sure. This is a great sign for Cincinnati's class, a class that, as you mentioned, Neil, was lagging for the past month and a half, 2 months, the big haymakers in the college football recruiting window. Well, now you see them, as I thought they would, creep back up into the top 55, hanging at 55th overall nationally right now on 24/7 Sports, and then on 3 team rankings looking like kind of a similar story. They are hanging in the kind of 50s range on 3. And when we look at them sitting at right now, still at, pull this up here, 55, same as with 24/7 Sports, and then Rivals. I don't know if they've necessarily logged this one just yet, but they're going to be hovering around the 55 to 60 range. That's not good enough. It's not where you want to be finally in the final moments of the recruiting window, but they're not in those moments just yet. They have plenty of time here still to get the job done, still to add some big names. We'll see if they can over the next 5, 6, 7 weeks or so before the recruiting window basically kind of dies down once those full on conference games get cooking and we start to see this class finalize.
Yeah, absolutely, and expect it to kind of ramp back up. Obviously, the window signing period starts in November. Early signing days in November, and then you have the regular signing day late December. So overall, there's still plenty of time to really kind of lock down their final commits. For us, obviously, we've talked about they're sitting at 15 hard commits right now. We expect them to be close to probably 2021. But right now, Russ, as you mentioned, it was a great talking point. Wide receivers and cornerbacks and safeties and defensive backs. That's really all this 2025 recruiting class is. You have a couple offensive linemen and defensive linemen, Benny Patterson being the only defensive lineman in this class. Then you have Jahari Medlock, Samuel Page, and a couple guys there on the offensive line. But now expect them to really kind of target. You got your players in need there in the secondary and on the outsides of the ball. They're kind of expect these last few guys to be locked in offensive linemen or attack the defensive side of the ball as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what transpires over these next couple weeks. But Russ, I truly expect this class to be still climbing with everything going on and still potentially find their way back into a top 40 rankings when things are all said and done. But overall, this weekend right here, this is another big start to really turn this class back up to a top 40 ranking team, especially when you land a talent like Giyahni Kontosis on the offensive side of the ball. I think right now, Russ, things are trending in the right direction for Cincinnati, despite the last couple weeks that they had, losing guys like Eric Gale, losing a guy like Paul Nelson. I think they will be just fine, and if fans continue to stay patient, things will all work out for Scott Satterfield and the Bearcats and this fan base.
Mid-40s to kind of mid-30s to mid-40s is the range you want to see this class start to take, and you want to see it start to become one of those classes that looks like a 2021 or a 2019, 2020, something like that, where you're starting to get in that mid-30s, mid-40s range nationally, and overall can get some real impact there. It'll be interesting to see. They have gotten off on the right foot after stumbling a little bit over the past couple of weeks. Kontosis committing. Excuse me. I'm so used to talking about NFL free agency. I keep saying signing, but Kontosis committing. Say that 5 times fast is a very, very crucial marker for this class. Take a quick break here, and then we'll get to the players that are about to be on the field in regular Bearcats uniforms and practice attire. Fall camp just across the way here. We are just less than 48 hours away from the start of fall camp for the Cincinnati football program. Our final thoughts ahead of it after these messages on Bearcat Blitz. Bearcat Blitz returns, presented by Bet Online. Neil, I'll offer it up to you. I've been kind of taking the first step here on our pre-fall camp thoughts on offense, defense, just our general thoughts here before we get into the full camp action this week. What are you kind of looking for that we haven't talked about just yet?
Yeah, Russ, I think that's a great point. Obviously, things are trending with into the new season, year 2 in the Big 12. It's going to be very interesting on all sides of the ball once we get out to Camp Higher Ground here soon. Camp starts in less than 48 hours, as you mentioned. And Russ, I know it's a great time always being out at Camp Higher Ground, but the thing is about Camp Higher Ground is you're always going to be caught by surprise by somebody emerging as one of those players that you're really not expecting to come out and make an impact. We saw it last season. Antoine Peak was one. Last season, he had a great camp. He got put on a scholarship. So for heading into camp, I think the biggest thing, Russ, for me, that we've already talked about it briefly a little bit. I think we know what we're getting on the defensive side of the ball with the 3-3-5. Obviously, the big storyline is going to be what percentage of practice does Dante Corleone practice in, all that kind of health update after the situation he had with the blood clots. But overall, Russ, I'm looking forward to the offensive side of the ball. I'm really looking to see how Brendan Sorsby and this offensive line gel with the tight ends, the wide receivers, really kind of getting a better look in depth of what this offense could really look like, especially after they've returned so much talent and so much experience up front there on the offensive line. But I'm really, really looking forward to seeing the transition from what we saw last year at the tight end position to where we are now. We hear about Joe Royer and the transition he has made from Ohio State to Cincinnati and how he has had a great offseason. But I'm going to be really interested to see how that tight end position really looks and they utilize it here under Scott Satterfield in year 2. That's for me on the offensive side of the ball.
Campfire Ground. Bummed, Neil. Bummed that I won't be out there this year at all. It's due to the scheduling ways, powers that be. I will not be able to make it because of my other job duties here at the station. But how many do you think you'll be able to get out there for Campfire Ground this year?
Hopefully majority of them. I'm still trying to figure out some work schedules as well, but hopefully get out to hopefully all of them if things play in the right direction. So fingers crossed on that one.
So Neil will have us covered there on Campfire Ground, sights and sounds. Just can't make it happen this year. Hopefully next year with the new practice facility put in. I'm anticipating they'll still be going to Campfire Ground. We'll see if we can't get some more timely things that work out for my schedule, although nobody's scheduling around me, and that's obviously understood. When we think about what I have just intriguing me going into these next couple of weeks, Neil, that we haven't really quite talked about is the hierarchy behind Xavier Henderson. Mm-hmm. What does that look like in the wide receiver room? Evan Prater, didn't see much of him this spring. Didn't really see any of him on the practice field this spring because of I think it was a lower body injury he was going through there. And
rehabbing a little bit.
Yeah. On top of that, Aaron Turner was solid last year in the slot. Can he make an even bigger impact this year? Tyron Smith, he was the standout guy for us, really everybody on the offensive side of the ball throughout spring. He was making plays all over the field. Jamoy Mays coming in as well. He was kind of a later addition, I believe. Did not get in the spring ball very much, if any. So what kind of impact can he make after a new entry into that playbook over the past couple of weeks, past couple of months? Tony Johnson, what kind of impact can he have? Barry Jackson Jr. in his redshirt freshman season, can he break into this wide receiver rotation? Neil, it's a lot heavier competition in this wide receiver room this year compared to last year, just in terms of overall talent, overall depth. There's a lot more to be excited about with this wide receiver room and the weapons that Brendan Sorsby or Brady Lichtenberger, whoever is going to be taking snaps at starting quarterback, are going to have at their disposal to go along with the impressive summer that Joe Royer has had. So when you think about the passing game in general, there's a lot of opportunity there. And besides Xavier Henderson as the, I would say, entrenched number one option as a pass catcher, there's going to be a hierarchy for the taking. And that's, I think, kind of played into the competition structure that this coaching staff has taken throughout the offseason. Just from what we're hearing, there's not a lot of just set first string going up against second string or second string going up against third string. There's a lot of groups getting mixed around. There's a lot of competition going on. And I anticipate we see that at least in the first couple practices, or hear about it from you on the show. Yeah. In the first couple practices over there at Campfire Ground and when they're at Nipper Stadium. But I will be able to make it to, I think, one of the Saturday. They only have one Saturday scrimmage this year. So I'll be making it to that.
It's also good you mentioned the wide receiver room, Russ, because that was something Scott Satterfield even mentioned at Big 12 Media Days when we asked about Xavier Henderson. Last year, they felt like Xavier Henderson was getting double teamed very frequently. But with this group this year, they feel like there should be some opportunity there for some one-on-one opportunities for Xavier Henderson. That way they're not really getting double teamed there. So it's going to be interesting. As you mentioned, Xavier Henderson's obviously going to be the guy on the wide receiver room. But, man, I'm excited to see what a Jamoy Mays can do after spending the spring at UAB. What could Aaron Turner's jump be from last season to this season? Sterling Burkhalter, another name you didn't mention, Ross, still back in that wide receiver room. He had a great spring as well. So the wide receiver room is really gelling together compared to where they were last year at this time, compared to where they are now. I believe you only have the one addition at the wide receiver after spring ball. Russ and I believe last season, all of your wide receivers came after the spring ball, but this year, Jamoy Mays was the only one to transfer in at the wide receiver position after spring ball. So that's huge right there for Brendan Sorsby for one, but huge for the offensive side of things as well. Really open the pass game. So it's going to be exciting. It really will be exciting to see how this wide receiver room and what this offensive side of the ball really looks like. Because, Russ, they struggled last year moving the ball through the air. We saw that. But now that you have all these options, Brendan Sorsby there, who's arguably potentially the leader there at the quarterback position, I mean, for all that we would hope, is Brendan Sorsby's leading that quarterback battle. So it's going to be really interesting to see how things open up, especially when fall camp opens up here in about 48 hours.
Bringing you all the action and all the happenings news-wise and the such from the Scott Satterfield and coordinators press conference on Tuesday. We'll have you covered and dive into the first few bits of fall camp after these ensuing few days right here on the late week episode. When you get that on Bearcat Blitz, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and have a great time until then, everybody. Right here on Bearcat Blitz, coming at you on the Believe Network. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. Have a great week, y'all.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Here back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race.